welcome back to Bit by Bit, here for another coffee break. And today we were thinking about kind of what we could do that made sense with the like inauguration coming up. You know, both of us being in America and that being a very like relevant thing to people this week, but also keeping in mind that like we're a gaming podcast and we were thinking of like what could work, and we were tossing around ideas, and I'm like, I don't really want to talk like gaming politics really, but I kind of want something to be in that spirit, and just had the idea of talking about kind of control in games, because I think with a lot of sentiments, certainly sentiments on this show, is that you kind of like did whatever you did, you know, as far as votes, and then now it's like the result isn't exactly what we were looking for, and now it's kind of like, well, what do we do now? And you know, and we're not really looking to explore ways to do that today, but we're kind of thinking about what does it feel like to not have control, and how is gaming interesting with that, because with games it's all about control. If you are the player, you're the one that's making the action, and in that sense it's like one of the more like directly interactive mediums of art that we have. So I really like that topic, because I think about that a lot with games, this idea of control. So to start off, for me, I really think of control being like most pertinent in games when we're thinking about games that have player choice, and where player choice affects the story. I'm pretty new to this. I'm sure Jess can, you know, give a more like thorough background on it. But for me, I think the first game where I ever really had player choice was probably One Night Stand Simulator, a game developed by Lucy Blundell, I think is how to say her name. And that one it's a really good game. It's pretty cheap on Steam. I think it's still on itch.io if you're interested on that. And that game is a visual novel, and the setting was that you woke up and you're male, and you woke up next to this woman, and you just had this one night stand, but you were kind of like drunk the night before, so you kind of blacked out. So you're like trying to you like wake up and you're like, I'm not in my bed, like what's going on? You're like piecing together all these things, and you're like talking to her and like trying to ask questions and like trying to, you know, just basically navigate the social situation. So it's very like realistic in that sense, and you're like, and you can have different motivations, right? Like maybe you're trying to continue a relationship with her, maybe you want to leave amicably, maybe you're like, you know, your main goal is just to figure out what's going on. You don't care if you seem like, you know, janky to her and things like that. Right. So it was really interesting, and you can get all these different endings. I originally played that game when it was just a demo game, and then the full version released a few months ago. So I since then played the full version and got all the endings. I think there were 12 endings you can get, and I spent time like getting all of them, and it was a really fun game, and I really, really enjoyed that experience. That was my first time with player choice, so I think it was also like, even though it's such a decently old mechanic, I was like, oh wow, like this is like everything's different, and you know, it just reminded me a lot of, you know, when I was younger and they had those choose your own adventure books. I wish I pulled mine from the shelf. I have one on the shelf actually, but it's like too far away to get it. Of the Super Mario Brothers Choose Your Own Adventure book, the Brain Drain one. Yeah, I have it on the bookshelf.
That's so cool.
We're gonna bring it down for this video. I didn't think I'd talk about it though, but that was my first time with player choice, and that was interesting because like it was kind of in your control, but it was really like thinking about, especially trying to get the endings without knowing much about what the endings were. Like there were hints that you could scroll over if you wanted to give yourself a hint. Like one was like friendship with 6 strings attached, and you're like, okay, this has to do with the guitar that's in the room. You know, this is related to music. I have to get something happening with music. There were other hints like that too, but my favorite part was trying to guess like what kind of endings I could get. Like I'm like, there must be an ending for if I say like all the wrong things, and like, you know, or like a way for me to get kicked out like naked, and like just weird stuff. So
did you get kicked out naked?
I did get kicked out naked because I got all the endings. That was one of them. There's a bunch of other goofy ones that I don't want to spoil it for anyone that wants to play it, but that was interesting because the control kind of took the form of me trying to like manipulate circumstances just to like see what will happen. So it was kind of like I guess devious in that sense. And then my only other experience with choice in games, like real choice in games, was Life is Strange, which I think I mentioned on this channel I recently played through. And that one's really interesting to me without getting too into it, because it's like the perfect illusion of control, I feel like. I guess, you know, one could argue that in games, like, unless it's player choice driven, and even then, like, you kind of have fake control, because, like, you know, with, you know, Mario or whatever, I'm in control, but also there's kind of, like, only one circumstance that can exist.
Right.
I mean, I can gain more collectibles, and
it's like you can play or not play. Like,
yeah, I can't like really change anything. Like, I'm still like the agent of things, but I'm not like really affecting the narrative or anything like that. There's barely even a narrative, you know, in games like that. But with Life is Strange and other games of that genre, especially where it carries over in episodes, it's so interesting to me because I feel like so many like when I talk to people about the game, I'm like, what was your experience like? Because I'm like, I don't even know if we have the same things to talk about.
Right.
Like, you saw things I never saw because I only played through it once.
Me too.
Yeah, and my favorite part of that is it's the perfect illusion of control because for those of you unfamiliar, Life is Strange, it's an episodic game by Square Enix, and it's like about like high school drama at this art school, but it's mainly about like her ability to rewind time. And with that, I'm like, oh, I can always make the perfect choices because I can see, like, you know, I can look at A and then see the result, and then B and see the result, and then rewind and then decide. And I'm
right,
right,
but it's like,
I'm like,
false.
Yeah, I'm like, I got it all together. Yeah. Like, you can't okie doke me because I can rewind time. Everything can be perfect, just like I want it to be in real life. And then Life is Strange, as you go on, you realize that it's not really the case. And then as you finish the game, you're like, that really wasn't the case. And it kind of just like, and I think that maybe annoyed some players, but I'm like, wow, I actually had like, in some ways, less control in this game than games where I feel like I have no real control at all. So that was just really fascinating to me, them playing with those kind of notions and expectations of what a choose your own decisions game is.
Right.
But yeah, so what's kind of your background on that and your feelings on control in games?
Well, those have always been my favorite kinds of games. I mean, I think my first real like favorite game I was obsessed with was Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic, which started a lifelong obsession with BioWare games because that was the first BioWare game I played, and since then I've loved all of them. So but that was the first one I played, and I think what makes that game unique, even within the BioWare universe, is and that I loved, is that you can be evil. And it's great. Like, you are the hero of the story, but you can choose to be the villain. And I think for me, that was like the best moment because for those of you who don't know, Star Wars Knights of the Republic is you're like a Jedi, and like you can do different things and make different choices that sort of realign your commitment to like the dark side versus the light side. And you can see them kind of throughout the game, like in these levels and stuff. And like, I don't know, I've always been sort of like, I don't know, maybe I was kind of a creepy kid, but like from the get-go, I was like, I'm dark side. Like, we're doing dark side run through right now. And so that was the first thing I ever did. And throughout the game, you know, you're sort of like regaining memories because you don't have your memory at the beginning of the game and sort of figuring out who you are, you know? And I'm going to say this right now in case you want to, you know, like take the audio out for a second, but it's a spoiler, but also the game's so old. I mean, I feel like it's not a big deal. Sorry, Jenna, you're kind of like...
I don't mind
here and you can't like block it out.
I don't think I would play it. We'll put a time thing on the description so people can skip.
Right.
If they want.
But basically, how it turns out in the game is that you are actually this like dark Sith Lord, basically, and that your memory had been wiped by the Jedis because they were trying to use you as a tool against the dark side instead, you know? And like when I realized that, there was like this epic moment. My 10-year-old self's like sitting in front of this console, and like, you know, you realize this and it like pans over to your somewhat, you know, poorly imaged face because it's an old game, you know, and you're like looking, you got like this hood on and you're looking out over like this horizon, and I was like, I'm a Sith Lord. Like, it was the most amazing feeling, and I was like, yes, I'm this powerful Dark Lord, and I was lightning from my hands, and like, I loved that, and I loved that you could be the bad guy. I think partly because I'm not usually like a super bad person, and so it's not like I want to be like a bad guy in real life. I don't, but I like that I can do that in a game. So for me, like the choice aspect that was so exciting was that I could be a completely different person, not just like a person like myself, but with powers, but someone totally different, someone who has completely different motivators and different background and sort of does things in an entirely different way than I would. Because, you know, me personally, I would never murder all my friends with a lightsaber and like, you know, like just join the dark side and like all this other stuff. I mean, as much as I talk about liking the dark side, like in the Star Wars universe, it came down to it, I probably wouldn't be on the side of the Sith, you know. So
which is what I've been saying.
I know
years, but okay, go ahead.
Okay, we're not talking about it now. But that's what I love most about that, and that was really the first one where I had choice, and I thought, wow, this is such a unique video game. And little did I know there was going to be so many more from BioWare down the line. And so And I think the most recent one I've been playing is The Witcher 3. Mm-hmm. You have a bit of choice as far as that's concerned, although I'm not totally sure how far down it runs because I haven't finished the game yet. But what kind of related, I guess, to me to this idea of like the election or like making your vote versus like choice in game is that recently I was going through a part in the game and I needed to make a decision about like kind of what route I was going to take with like the romance lines. I was like, oh, well, it seems like I'm supposed to romance Yennefer, but like also there's this chick named Triss and like she seems important and I didn't know very much about the background from the past two games and like the books and stuff. And I'm not going to play those ones and because I started the first one, I didn't like it, but I'm probably not going to go back and play them. And so I did a whole bunch of research. I was like, I have to make an informed decision about these women, So I spent like an hour like watching videos of scenes and like researching stuff on Wikipedia and like all these other articles that come up about like the relationship dynamics so I can make an informed decision about, going forward in the game. And so I feel good about the path. But the reason I feel so good about it is because I know that Geralt is going to get what he wants because I'm making the choices for him, and he's the only actor that matters in this game because he's the only one with choice. And that's so weird. Everyone else is predestined. Like, I always get a choice, even if I make a choice and someone reacts and sort of takes that choice out of my hands. I can make a choice in reaction to that reaction. Like, I always get to have my say as Geralt, and I love that. And so I guess for me, it's nice to feel like. For me, a lot of things that I like about video games is it's nice to feel like what I say or pick matters. Yeah. It's the same for Mass Effect. I mean, it's like that too, and it's a BioWare game, so they're all pretty similar as far as choice is concerned, but I'm just obsessed with it. I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting, the point you bring up about how, like, at the end of the day, it's still everything is still on you as the player, in really any game, technically, but more so in games where you have that choice. Because you're right. I think it would actually be interesting then if they kind of mixed in some moments where it's like, oh, you chose this, well, it didn't matter because which even though is as horrifying as that is in real life, especially in the context of this recent election, I think it'd just be really interesting to add in because once again, I love the subversion of expectation in games. Something that's really interesting to me is before we even started this video, we're kind of talking about what we want to talk about. Yeah, but I also don't like my choice feeling doesn't matter in games too much. Maybe because it's like too much like real life or something. But like we were talking about how in the you brought up the Pokemon games where you it's like an RPG. Pokemon's of course an RPG, and you have like dialogue options. But I always hated how they didn't matter at all. I mean, I don't really want Pokemon to drastically change or become like this episode. I don't need that from Pokemon, and I get why they do it that way, but I feel like if you're going to give me... And I know they, kind of changed what the person says a little bit, but it's basically the same thing. Like, I know I was at this one part, I'm towards the end of the game, and I'm on, for what island it is. It's, one of the last islands. And I'm going to get the flute, the moon flute, I think. Sorry, I have the sun flute, they flip in the different games. But anyway, so I was going to go get the flute, and the flute was at, I think it's is it Executor? How to say it? Executor Island was where the flute was. And before I go on this boat, which they, right tell you need to go on, they say, where do you need to go? And the options are Executor Island or to get the flute. And the reason it is because it's the same thing. Those options are the same, but I'm like, it's just I don't know, something like that. I'm
so
just
arbitrary.
Why
did you even include the option?
Right, you're trying to pretend like there's something here and there's not, and I really don't like that. In some ways about the Pokemon universe, I feel like if I don't really have dialogue options, then I don't have dialogue options, and that's fine. Okay, so also going back to something that you mentioned with the Star Wars game, you said that with your light and dark choices, they kind of showed you a little bit what they kind of lean towards. How do you feel about games that do that? Because I recently started playing a little bit of the FIFA 17 story mode. First time in FIFA history that they've had a story mode, so that's been interesting. I don't think I'm going to keep playing it because I'm just not that into the story modes of sim games that are sports related, so racing sims, sports sims. Typically I don't really like the story mode of that. I just kind of want to play it. But I was playing the story mode, and they you have different dialogue choices, and you're making these decisions. It's actually pretty fun. And I'd be curious how you'd feel about it liking that genre of games, but not liking sports sims
as much,
inherently, right? Because you get to like make those choices. You pick your league and your deal, you know, all that stuff. But with your dialogue choices, they like, you know, something will come up and, you know, so they'll be like, your name's Alex Hunter, and someone will be like, you know, nice job on the pitch, Alex, and they're like throwing shade at you or something, and then you get to choose to respond, but they like tell you that your responses are like hot, cold, neutral. You know, they like kind of tell you what the temperament
ahead of time.
And then they have like, I think, and maybe I'm making this up in my mind, but and then I think they also have kind of like, they kind of show you your character breakdown of like what are you like hot-headed, or are you cool, or are you new, you know. How do you feel about the game kind of telling you like how it kind of showing you its hand on how you're creating your character?
I have mixed feelings about it, I guess. In some ways, like if I talk about Dragon Age Inquisition as an example, or even both, like we talk about Dragon Age 2. Mm-hmm. Actually, let's go with Dragon Age Origins. I'm not sure if Dragon Age 2 doesn't. Dragon Age Origins, it shows you your relationships with other characters, like on a little bar with a little heart like, under their characters. So you can see, like, they hate you, they love you, that kind of thing.
Right.
And then Dragon Age Inquisition, you don't have that, but you do have, like, you pick a dialogue option or you make a choice, and then on the side of the screen, you get all these little dialogue things that say, you know, Cassandra greatly approves, Solus disapproves, Dorian approves slightly, you know, those other kind of things, which has led to a number of jokes in my apartment with my roommate where, you know, she'll do something and I'll be like, Jess slightly disapproves, you know, or something like that, because we're nerdy, but, I mean, so there's that aspect of it. I can bring it into my regular life. But the main thing that I find interesting about that is that you get to know right away what the impact of your choice was, at least with the characters you're interacting with. But you don't know before you make the choice. So I'm sitting here, you know, like, I really don't want Solus to be upset with me. But, like, you know, if I pick this one, you know, he really likes when I pick stuff that, like, helps other mages or, like, you know, whatever. But if I pick this one, he hates, you know, this kind of person. And so, like, I feel like it's a catch-22. So also going to be mad no matter what I do. Sometimes he is. And so, like, trying to weigh, like, who you're trying to, like, cater to in that playthrough is interesting. And you don't know until it happens. And I'm not the kind of person who reloads my game if I, you know, didn't get what I wanted.
Right.
So, for me, it's like, you know, it's like, that's it. And then I'm like, oh, no, did I just ruin my relationship? You know, what happened? You know, so... So I find that really interesting. But at the same time, sometimes I think in Dragon Age Inquisition, I'd like to see where I'm at with different people, because I occasionally, especially when I replay a game, I'm trying to force a stronger narrative. Like when I first play a game, I'm just playing the game and I'm seeing what happens. But then when I have an idea what's going to happen, I'm like, wow, okay, given this is the plot line, wouldn't it be interesting if, you know, if this person did this, or if I could get this person to do this. And so sometimes it's hard to, like, track my narrative goals when I don't know where I stand. But that's a very specific circumstance. So in general, I think I like it when the game reflects my choices and like the kind of personality I'm creating, more than I like it when they portray it, because sometimes I feel like if you portray it, you're basically just like removing, like you're sort of getting off the hook for creating a narrative difference by saying, oh, well, this is your character's personality. I'm like, well, what does it matter if it doesn't affect the gameplay?
Right. You know? And then also it just like kind of skews my, at least for me, like, you know, having played just a little bit of the FIFA story mode, it kind of skews like how I want to react, because like typically when I play games like that, that are just like a once through, like you do the story and you have your choices, it's like I want to have like a decent person. And I want to, like, you know, make good things happen for my character and, you know, the end. So then I'm like, well, I'm going to want to be balanced personality-wise, because, like, you know, that's, like, what you want as a person. So you're, by like, overtly telling me how to get the balance, it's like I feel like you're kind of almost not taking away my choice, but now I'm too informed to make this choice in a way that's going to be interesting. Because, like, the dice roll is kind of... It's like, just so you know, when you like drop it this way, it's a 7. And I'm like, well, now I feel like I'm looking at the board and thinking about, So, so I guess all of this is to say that, that I think, I guess in some ways, your hand is always kind of shown with like how your choices will impact the game, whether it's shown like way down the line immediately or like very overtly, like as in like before you even make the choice, you kind of know what it's set up to be. I like what you said about, was it Dragon Age, right? I think it's pretty cool to see it like immediately after, because then you get like the, oh, now I know, but like you didn't know before, and now it's like it's kind of the best
right.
of both. It sounds like to me.
But you also don't know the long-term effects of your
right.
choice, which is nice. So you know like how people are feeling about your choice, but you don't know what your choices are going to be.
And that's kind of what Life is Strange did a lot too, because you got the direct reactions, and then. But then you're like, oh, what's this thing gonna do? And like whenever that little butterfly came up, like I really want that in real life. I'm like, maybe I shouldn't do that.
I wish I had that little bar under people's characters, like to know how much they liked me. I'm like, oh, my friendship with Janet's really lacking right now. I should put some time into that.
Yeah,
right.
Like
goes down over time.
Right, and they have the same thing for the in Pokemon Sun and Moon, like the even like the affection and the happiness and the enjoyment and the fullness.
Why is that not real?
I'm like, now I know, like, oh, you're hungry, or like you don't love me anymore. Like, pat you on the head, and then now we'll fix everything.
Yeah, because so many people love you.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. So I guess just like kind of wrapping up, I've always felt really strongly about choice games, and I guess I feel a lot more strongly about them now, like in a time in my life, not just because of like the inauguration or election or anything, but like in a time in early adulthood where I feel like I have so little control. I'm like, video games can give me some of that back, and it's a little weird.
Yeah.
But I like it. I think it's okay. It's probably not too unhealthy.
Yeah, to like kind of feel like this is a space where I can like explore decision making in a way that's safe in a vacuum. That's something I wrote about recently, actually, with Life is Strange and how I feel about the game as a whole. It just makes me more grateful for like what all the setup we have of everything, because like it's so crazy how one little thing can change the course of like your whole like life or history or anything like that. And that's not to say that I'm like, this thing has happened, so like let's just let things keep happening, because I don't believe in that either. But I think it was just really helpful to kind of take a second and reflect on like the scope of things, and how like it's at the end of the day, it's all about how you're in games and in real life. It's all about how you react to things that end up happening to you, because like you said, it's always down to your decisions. So even if your decision is like you choose A, and as a result now Z is happening, well, now you have to react to
choose
Z
again.
So
that's
now
life.
Yeah. So I really like how that's very much reflected in choice games, and I like how that makes me think about my own decision making, especially like I said, young adulthood, the inauguration, all the stuff that's going on, a time where it's important to take whatever you currently have and to always work towards whatever goal you have. So whether it's making your situation better in real life, whether making positive impacts in your community, or whether it's in a game and you want to explore a certain story or a certain playstyle or a certain character, it's just really nice to be able to like take a second and do those things and reflect on those things. And I think that's really important.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, so hopefully some more narrative choice-based games coming up in the future. I know. Mass Effect is coming up soon. I've never played a Mass Effect game still. I know for me, I'm going to dive into the BioShock collection soon. That was my doorbell.
That was terrifying.
So we're gonna wrap things up at this point. But thanks for watching, guys. Be sure to give this video a thumbs up. Be sure to hit subscribe. And be sure to stay tuned for our weekly installment of Coffee Break. All right, we'll see you next week.